So I think you haven't got. Do you have any articles which ISTD has given you on talent management?
Yeah, there are some in the dashboard which was given,
Okay.
which we downloaded.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
those articles are pretty good, and
the
you will get.
you at one, I think. No, that's I
Yeah.
read through
Right.
that. That was there are quite a few.
In talent management, I think there are just about four of them.
Four documents and some presentations. I think one or two.
Okay. I
Yeah.
will also forward all these presentations. I think I shared the first one, but after that, the subsequent ones have not been shared. So I will share all of.
Okay. So, Arun, I don't know if it's going to be posted in the Google Classroom or.
I will leave that to Arun
Yeah,
uh, or Mr. Kaushal to decide
yeah, okay.
to share it with you.
Yes, ma'am. It will be shared on the Google Classroom over there, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Okay, great. So anybody remembers what we talked about last time?
Yeah, so we did the mapping, the 9 box grid again, and skill as well as the interest level of participants. That was really interesting for me to map that, and succession planning we had started thereafter. Elements of the succession planning we touched.
That's right. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, visible.
Okay, great. So this is where we were last time. We were discussing what is succession planning. Like Arpita rightly said, we went back to the nine blocker and we talked about performance potential on X and Y axis. So succession planning, as we discussed, is very critical, and not every company does it, but most of the companies which do it, they do it for a select few roles, particularly the leadership roles. And there are some companies which do it for the middle management also, but there are very few companies which do it as a process for the entire organization. So we will look at some companies in terms of how they do it and what are the methods that are used. Okay, so the first company we look at is IBM, and I think you may remember earlier I had mentioned that IBM has a career marketplace. It has a global career marketplace, and we had also spoken about the skill matrix. So the skill matrix of every employee, it is some managers enforce the skill matrix, so they are supposed they keep it populated, and from the skill matrix you can make out the skill level of every employee. So suppose that employee who has filled up her skill matrix, she wants to apply for a job in the global career marketplace. So she can go and apply. And the person who has posted that job at the other end, he will be able to see that this candidate has applied from X country or let's say within India. And this is the skill matrix of this person. She's at level 3 of project management, level 4 at team management, so and so forth. So basically, that really helps. Now here we are looking at what they are talking about is a network of executive resource program managers, or ERPMs, across business units, who are responsible to match executives to jobs. So they these ERPMs are like recruiters or internal recruiters, and internal recruitment is what we are talking about. So succession planning kind of really helps internal recruitment, because you are able to identify the talent that is there within the organization, the skills that are there within the organization, and then align it to the skills that are required by the organization. So the ERPM, reviews the open position that has come. Then the ERPM uses talent and job searching tools to match candidates to the jobs, and then works with the resourcing executive to craft a candidate slate. So basically, what is the job and what are the kind of candidates available, and they do the closest match possible. And then once they shortlist a set of candidates, that is offered to the recruiting manager, that this is what the profiles look like. And once those profiles are identified, they may not be aligned immediately, but they may be groomed. There may be a latency of 3 months, 6 months, even 1 year, and those people are groomed and then eventually aligned to those positions. So this is a kind of a more systematic aligning of people to opportunities within the company. As you can appreciate that, many tech companies, their headcount runs into hundreds of thousands of people. So you actually have a big internal base to recruit from. And if you have a succession planning, both for the candidate who wants to leave his or her position today and join another opportunity in the company, so there needs to be somebody to take over from her. Similarly, uh, this person who is being groomed, she may need to be groomed for some time, so that she can take over the position that she has been identified for. So it runs very systematically, across pillars of business. And this is a global program that is available. So it's a slightly different twist to the regular idea of succession planning that we have. Okay. Uh, Moving on, let's look at what Johnson and Johnson does. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay. So this is how Johnson and Johnson does. I mean, this is of course far more logical. It's very logical, and if you see that basically this is uh, a different variant of the nine blocker that we had seen earlier. So again, you have potential and performance, and you have people who are plotted in this graph and plotted in this matrix. And you have people development codes. One is unacceptable. So those the ones you don't see at all mapped anywhere. Ones are probably put on PIP or something like that. So at least in a succession planning plotter, they are not visible. So you start from two, and the twos are low on potential, low on performance. So you may not really be, looking at them for any to take over any roles. So succession planning may not really apply to them. But threes and fours, and of course fives, they are groomed to look at additional roles. So people whose performance is okay and they have high potential, while those who are performing uh, very well may not be very high on potential, but they all both profiles: movers, keepers, growers. So they have these three labels for these people. So I think the mark for the grower should be on five, not on four. So anyway, so these are the profiles who are groomed for to take up higher responsibilities, and those responsibilities may be identified, and then they are groomed to take over those roles. So it's a very systematic way of doing it, rather than just saying who are my high potentials. Okay, now these are the 10 people. They want them to be taken through an assessment center or something like that. Of that, it's systematic. Generally, these are part of, I think, Arpita, you had also said, this is part of your appraisal process.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is really helpful. If it is part of the appraisal process, then it is very systematic, because off cycle activities do not really take off. If we just kind of create, I will have a set of meetings on succession planning, let's say in the month of August or September or something like that, that generally doesn't take off. So it's better to integrate it with the existing system of the appraisal cycles. Okay, any questions so far? Any observations?
It's clear
All
from
okay. Okay, so now, uh, earlier, now of course you have Google and Facebook and all these big IT companies. But earlier, for about good 15 20 years, GE used to be the most respected company globally, and their systems were copied by people. And GE's CEO himself used to say, steal shamelessly. If there is value anywhere, please steal shamelessly. So while GE used to steal shamelessly, others used to also steal shamelessly from GE to understand what are the things they are doing, which is resulting in very good performance year on year. Because I think quarter on quarter, they grew from 1987 to about year 2000. There was hardly one quarter where they saw a decline of revenues. So, which is a phenomenal record. So, what is it that they were doing which resulted in this sort of a revenue? So, succession planning is a very important part of this. Now they have something called Session C. So Session C is not just about talent management; it's also about the strategic plan for the next, next few years. So in Session C, well, don't ask me why it's called Session C. This was a big question when I was an employee in GE, and frankly, nobody really had the answers. So, but it is known as Session C. So session C is where you kind of, one of the core discussions that happens is basically you look at performance potential, and you take a very close look at your talent pipeline. So it starts, of course, with individual resume and self-assessment. It is part of the appraisal cycle, chronological, in-depth, structured interviews, then performance appraisal, and then latest career potential assessment. So uh, now, another thing, you will come across not just GE, but most companies you will come across, and this applies not even in a company. It applies even in a small private limited company. It applies in a university. So one of the things that is always recommended is that increase your visibility. In many appraisals, a lot of people get this feedback: increase your visibility. Now, I don't know if any of you have got that feedback. Uh, Anyone?
So increase your visibility, yeah. So, whatever you work, you need to highlight that
Yes, that is definitely yes. You need to highlight.
uh,
You need to.
and keep reporting. Yeah.
and
uh,
also maybe be part of relevant projects, which is critical. Try to participate. If,
Right.
Yeah. So whenever there is a brainstorming session happening in your organization, please be a part of it. Please contribute the ideas so that you are visible. I mean, we used to say, my boss used to say like that visibility is important.
Yes, absolutely. So
Okay.
one of the things that you see over here, the last box down below, which is latest career potential assessment. So a manager two levels above the reviewed individual formulates an assessment of the potential. So you can see that if you're working with your manager, then of course the manager knows about how you're doing well or not so well. But equally important is that you should be there on the radar of your manager's manager. Okay, because your manager's manager is probably a bigger decision maker than your manager. So if your manager even goes with a proposal that you need to be grown, you need to be promoted, or you need to be given an increment, all that will be approved by your manager's manager, not by your manager. So therefore, it's very important for any individual aspiring towards a certain level of success to be in the limelight and be on the radar of his or her manager's manager. So that is why it is being said over here that uh, if you increase your visibility, what we see in GE, what happens is that your potential is evaluated by your manager's manager, not by your manager. And that results in uh, anybody who has enhanced their visibility, who has, like Arpita said, that they have got involved in high projects or high visibility projects or any initiative which is being done well. And as Pallavi said, that uh, get involved when you kind of highlight your work. Yes, highlight your work, but not just to the manager, but to other stakeholders also. So therefore, one sure short way of being successful is how are you interacting with your manager's manager and other stakeholders? Because in a decision for your growth, for your maybe even a lateral movement, it is going to be not just your manager but other stakeholders as well. So therefore, as the process happens in G, it's a set of individuals will be taking a decision and not just your manager. So therefore, that is very very important, and that
So
applies.
one thing I would like to add, sir, sorry to interrupt. So
No,
actually, what happens many times, what you are working is being directly monitored by your just immediate boss.
right,
But he may not give the right picture to his boss, the that is you said the second line manager,
right.
and he may have a different opinion about me, which may not be right. So if
Mhm.
I am visible, if I am increasing my visibility to my second line manager or to my lateral colleagues, or if I have a higher greater visibility, then it happens that even sometimes when my immediate manager, if he doesn't project me properly, so that gets negated. That's a big advantage. And I have seen it happening that many people who are very good, but they are not being projected properly by the managers, so ultimately they lose out in the long run. But somebody who may not be so good, but he is very visible, he keeps himself involved in that वो कहते हैं ना कि वो अपनी डंका बजाना. So these people, they get recognized more. This is has a practical this thing I have seen.
Yes, you're
So this is
absolutely
very
right.
important to make yourself visible nowadays. At least you need to be visible.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Very often, though, that is not the norm, but yes, there are a lot of managers who deliberately or even otherwise, they do not highlight the achievements of their team members. And sometimes they even tend to take the credit for themselves. That anything good that happens, they immediately say, okay, I actually initiated this and I got this done. And something bad that happens, they immediately palm it off to some team member. Oh, actually, he's not a very responsible person, but he did this. In future, I will make sure that this doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
So, so that is something you're absolutely right. That is something very common, and the way to address that is make sure that you individually are visible to your manager's manager and the stakeholders, so that even if you're not portrayed in the right light, or even if you are the good work that you have done, the credit is being taken by somebody else, but other people should know that who actually has done the work, so that your brand equity in the organization is sustained and gets strengthened.
Sir, I would like to share just a small incident. I don't
Sure.
know. I mean, I'm able to relate it with the GE section C, that the portion we are discussing. Yesterday, only
Mhm.
what happened, I was in a coaching session, and
Okay.
there was this guy who was, who joined my session on a one-to-one basis for, to check that whether he is competent enough to get interviewed to the other organization.
Mhm.
And during the discussion he revealed that why is he looking for the other change, and I specifically asked that at this point of time this is not the right time to change the company,
Yeah.
especially when we are approaching the appraisal. JFM in the banking industry is very crucial, and he
Right.
was a performer. So
Mhm.
then he told me that just few days back, a month back, he had a clash with his immediate line manager, right? And then because of that, the aggression went to a little on the higher side.
Okay.
So he said that that is the reason when I have started thinking of to move out of the system. So I said no, that's not required.
Mhm.
So then I actually, the discussion started going into this direction that when you are a performer, because he was actually a performer, right? So I analyzed it. I don't know, it was by chance, though I have never gone through this section C thing. I wrote noted down, and I said, see, as far as your resume is concerned, you have these skill sets, you have been performing really well, and if interview happens, so especially the performance appraisal, when it is going to happen, you have to highlight that you have been, he was a pan India top performer for 3 months, consecutive months, in the
Okay.
last quarter. So I told him that you have to highlight that, and then finally, the other things, that what businesses you have been doing, and not only that, you have been helping your colleagues also, so you have the managerial quality. So now, what I suggested him, that for another 2 3 months, because you have been a performer, and it's not that only your line manager must be aware about it, your super seniors would also be aware about it, right? Because the
Right.
performance is everything which is being marked in the system, the MISs are created.
Mhm.
So what you need to do now, you need to start looking up to your senior, super senior, more often, and try projecting yourself that yes, you are the potential candidate to be retained. Correct.
Okay.
So I suggested him that way. He said that can that happen? I said yeah, why not? So he said no. Usually, what happens that the seniors only hear what their managers are telling them, right?
Mhm.
So I said no, it's not always the case. If you are actually trying to highlight yourself, if you are improving your visibility, that's what I'm able to connect here, right? If you are
Mhm.
able to improve your
Absolutely.
visibility by
Absolutely.
your work, as
Mhm.
well as whenever the common meetings are happening, you need to conduct yourself really well, then
Right.
people will realize your potential, and then down the line, after 2 3 months, you will be gaining out of it. So that's
Right.
what I told him, that need not to just think about that moving out of the system. You can really develop yourself within the system also. Just because of one small clash or one thing which has happened, we should not start thinking in the other way around. So I mean, have I guided him correctly? I was on the
Definitely you
right.
have. Absolutely. So I think great people think alike. That's what we are
Oh
talking
my,
about here. So
thank you so much.
only thing that he
Yeah.
needs to do is he ideally should have started doing this earlier,
Oh,
and
correct.
should not have
Hmm.
waited for a clash to happen and then now looking for a way out. But anyway, this is not too late. He should build up a rapport with the manager's manager, and maybe, like for example, the HR manager tends to be very influential. So
Hmm.
he should reach out to the HR SPOC also and other stakeholders if he can, and
All
that
right.
would be of great help.
Hmm. Okay. So in the next session, I'm going to suggest him this.
Yes, and
Uh-huh.
because if he's able to build up a certain
A
credibility,
rapport. Hmm.
yeah, rapport and then a credibility for himself, then his manager will also think twice before portraying him negatively.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely correct. Hmm.
Okay,
Thank,
so
thank you.
sure, Balwant. So moving on, let's see, what the format looks like. So, you may come across some articles which tell you that GE's session C is very detailed. They do not kind of just go through the appraisals quickly, like in many companies. And appraisal at times is not taken that seriously. If the company is done well, they just broadly say that everybody gets X percentage of increment. If the company is not done well, nobody gets increment or maybe a small increment. So sometimes that happens, but in GE, the senior positions, and not just the senior positions, even the mid-level positions, each position is discussed in session C, discussed threadbare at times, all the pros and cons of the particular individual, their rating, what is planned for them in the coming year, how will they perform, and how are we understanding their potential. So all of that is discussed, and that is all the more reason, therefore, that people should ensure their visibility, because if somebody is invisible, somebody, let's say, is a hard worker but is not very visible, then people will not have much to discuss about that person. But if that person is visible, if that person is taking initiatives, is interacting with more people than just their manager or their team members, then there are a lot of people who know, okay, so Pallavi is doing this and Pallavi is doing that. We feel these are her strengths, these are her areas of improvement. So all of that gets discussed, and then that person is on the radar of the management and will be part of the succession plan that the department or the organization has. So you can see on the left, you have the background and experience of that individual. So all the details are provided by HR, and people have these files readily accessible to them. Then they look at their previous year, last 2 years ratings, and you have the ratings and what are the accomplishments. And the accomplishments, like it is advised in every appraisal discussion, please have it on the basis of numbers, not that the person is good or not so good, etc., etc., but have specific numbers that this was their sales target, this is what they've achieved, or this was their productivity target, this is what they've achieved, and so forth. Then you look at a 360 degree, which is what are the other people saying, what is the kind of evaluation they've got, and then their strengths, the areas of improvement, and then what are the plans and actions for the coming year. So you can see it's a very rounded appraisal of any individual. And if an organization takes so much care, so much makes takes so much effort to evaluate people, you can well understand that this organization is very serious about managing talent. And it is not a surprise that at one point of time, you had so many US companies where the CEOs had been groomed in GE, and then they had moved on. But their initial grooming as a leadership, as leader, had been in GE. So you had Allied Signal, you had Honeywell, you had Kmart. All their CEOs came from GE. Just like in India, you have HLN. If you look at FMCG companies, all good companies try to recruit from Hindustan Unilever. Similarly, at one point of time in India, all BPOs, they had people from Genpact. Uh, so so GE is kind of treated as the fountain of leadership, and this is one of the processes that is followed. It is a very elaborate discussion, which is session C, and this is what the format looks like. So any questions so far? Okay, great.
No.
So moving on. Uh, Now this is something good to have. If you have this, then it's easier to identify successors and identify people who can be groomed. So IDP, or an individual development plan, for every individual, or if not, if it is difficult to have it for every individual, then at least for the top performers. So here what is recommended is 70-20-10. 70-20-10 is actually a different thing, but here this 70-20-10 approach is used in the context of IDPs. So what we are talking about, 70 is basically job rotations, launching new businesses or programs, uh, international assignments, or just assignments across businesses. It doesn't really have to be in another country. It could be within the same country, but maybe a different part of the business. Then functional exposure. You may have people, if let's say in finance somebody is doing accounts payable, they are sent to general ledger or accounts receivable or some other department, so that they get a more rounded cross-functional exposure. And then they could also be assigned to some special projects, special tasks that the organization is focusing on. In some companies, you have learning programs which are across 2 to 3 years, where people are put through. Let's say in one company there is a something called FMP, or financial management program, where somebody who joins at an entry level is goes through 1 or 2 years of becoming comfortable with the company, and if they are selected as a top talent, then they are put in this FMP program, where they may go out to another country, or they may go out to, let's say today they are in manufacturing, tomorrow it's a conglomerate, so they may go to, let's say, sales or some service aspect of the business. So they are rotated, they are given a cross functional experience, and they come out more mature, with better business acumen after going through these programs. Next, you have a performance based feedback. So like Pallavi mentioned, coaching. So your top talents may be identified to be coached, and you may have an executive coach coming down and coaching them, or you may have people who are certified internally who can coach them. Like last time we had also discussed a mentoring program. So you can identify mentors from the senior uh, people in the organization. They can mentor people, have career discussions, then one-on-one executive networking. So all of these are can be a part of a good individual development plan. Of course, there are few companies which do this. There are also companies which have a very simple IDP where people are asked to identify the programs they would like to attend, and maybe some additional activities or be part of a project. So people create their own IDP, submit it to HR or their manager, and then once it's approved, it's activated and supported by HR or learning and development, or if they have a talent management executive, then by that person. So and then you have core education, which is your leadership development programs or behavioral programs, specific functional training, and of course other executive programs. So nowadays you also have so many e-programs. You have Skillsoft, you have Harvard Mentor, you have LinkedIn Learning. You have so many options. So there is no end to the core education and the core learning. So this is something really good, and each talent manager can kind of do this, and this can be done in an industrial scale if required, or it can be done in a very customized way. Ideally, it should be done for everybody, but the more senior they are, or if they are identified to succeed into some role, then it should be done very customized, as per how the individual is. So I knew an individual who was a fast tracker. He was really good when it came to business, but his relationships with people was not good. He would invariably get into arguments with a lot of people. But the company understood that he was brilliant when it came to business. He was able to turn around businesses. He was able to improve the margins of the businesses. If you gave him sick department, which was sick in the sense that it was bleeding, it was loss making, he would enter and he would clean it up, and within a year or two it would at least, if not profitable, it would start breaking even. So he was very good in handling business, but unfortunately he was very poor in interpersonal relations, and invariably he would get into very bad arguments with people. So he was identified to go to the UK office and work there for 2 years, because UK generally is considered a place where people tend to be very polite and suave. So and so the idea was that growing up in India, maybe his education was a bit rough. So he will become very, those rough edges will be gotten rid of. So he went off on a job assignment, and this entire specialized curriculum was created for him so that he would come out a different person. But after 2 years, unfortunately, he came out the same person. But he remained very good in business. So this was not IDP which succeeded, but generally they succeed if you keep the focus on. Okay, so now
So,
how?
Dipankar, is it that the it should be also the willingness of the person to change, right? Like the example you shared, if
Mhm.
he himself would not have wanted to work on those parameters, it may become very difficult
You are
to
absolutely
produce
right.
those changes.
See, actually, when you are nominated for this kind of a program, on the face of it, you cannot say I'm not willing to change or I'm not going.
Mm.
So you kind of carry on. You say, yeah, definitely, it's a good opportunity. Let me go. Let me see, and I will be part of this program. but in your heart of hearts, you may think that this is not adding any value, and I don't see any merit in it. So you are right. If the person doesn't see merit in it, then chances are that this program is not going to succeed.
Right.
Or he or she may be, you know, these this value system may be so deeply embedded in the person that the person is not able to change even after 2 years. Uh, we know that in psychology, you are not able to change your personality. You can change your behavior, but
Right.
not the core values of your personality. So, so it is difficult. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but then, sir, what about if somebody would have actually told him properly that, if he is going to have these kind of, interpersonal skills, how he will be able to succeed in the other area of life? Area of life in the sense, the career. Because if he was good at one thing, that is turning around the business, so eventually after 2 years also, he was being put for a similar kind of profile, maybe for XYZ business, and then further to any other business unit. But otherwise, if you talk about, he might not be moving in the hierarchy. So what was the reason for the failure of IDP? Maybe he
so
was not being communicated properly. He was being
yeah,
only told that,
yeah.
that only these parameters has to be developed. But once he will develop these parameters, how what changes in his career are going to happen, that was to be communicated properly, I think so.
Yeah, you are right. Actually, this conversation where somebody is put into an IDP and the IDP is aligned. So Arpita is absolutely right that the person for whom the IDP is created, that person's buy-in is very critical.
Hmm.
That person should feel, yes, this is going to add value, and this is being created for me, and the organization is supporting me in this transition. You know,
But as an individual, if you talk about individual behavior, if you are communicating the end goals or the objective clearly, then
right?
why a person would not be willing to? If he is into a business, if he is there to develop the career, why a person would not like to do that?
So
Is that he has made himself comfortable in a certain level of position, and then he wants to stay there only? So ultimately, I mean, he is stagnating his own career.
you are
It's not.
right. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes there are certain behavioral traits which are very difficult to get rid of. Uh,
Mm.
if
Mm-hmm.
let's say anger management, or
Mm.
let's say task orientation. If I am task oriented and I'm extremely task oriented, and people are not important to me, so I find it difficult then to suddenly become soft and caring for people when they haven't done something, and I had asked them to do. So I may flare up, and I may hold them accountable, uh, treat them in a dismissive way. So
Agreed. But this guy history shows that yes, he was able to turn around the businesses. Not
yeah.
every time you can go with the as a taskmaster. At times, in certain
Mhm.
business
It's
units, he would
it's
have been
uh,
a people orientation also,
it's a
considerative also.
behavior thing also, perhaps, because I remember one of these the ISABS labs that happen, the human lab. One of
Mhm.
the participants with us was a CFO, or maybe a slightly down, but somebody senior in finance in another organization. After the second day, he just packed up and went कि मेरे पास time नहीं है ये सब करने का. My job is what is important. I've been shoved in here, and I've got to go close my the
Business and
heat.
all.
That's the
Yeah.
heat. And he just packed up and went. So I can kind of relate with this.
Yeah. So it's difficult to tell, but Pallab, you're right that this initial discussion about the IDP should be a very powerful discussion where this person's buy-in is taken. Because if he or she is just pushed into it, then they will go along for some time, and sometimes their original behavior will surface again moment they are under
Correct.
stress.
So yeah, that's it. Because as an HR or as a talent manager, it is
Mhm.
my responsibility to get the buy-in of the people.
Yeah.
Otherwise, every second person is going to behave in in the similar manner. Because initially nobody is,
Mm.
very much convinced. You have to first convince the people that yes, this is going to benefit them. So
Yeah.
as a talent manager, it is my failure if such cases are happening. I believe so. Matlab, I
Yeah,
was thinking
no,
from the
you're right.
other.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, people do behave like this.
Hmm.
Agreed. But then why are they behaving so? And how can I overcome this situation? That's what I have to intervene.
Yeah. Absolutely. So this discussion may or may not have been effective. I don't know, but also sometimes I've seen that talent managers they are dealing with profiles who are senior, who are extremely powerful personalities. You
Hmm.
cannot mold them easily. They
Hmm.
are
Correct.
yeah they
Hmm.
are very very aggressive, and typically an HR person, unless the HR person is equally capable, is able
Hmm.
to hold on to this personality and make them see the logic of why they are being put through this idea.
Hmm. Correct.
So but you are right, that discussion is very fundamental, and it should happen for anybody who's being put through an IDP, that this is the reason and this is the outcome that the organization is expecting from this
Yeah, because a lot of money is being involved, a lot of
yeah,
planning
lot of
is
money,
involved,
lot of
budgeting is being
time.
done.
Yeah. So I and actually we just come to that only. Now here,
Okay.
how do we see the individual through this transition? So we can have a development center or assessment center where we give them focused feedback, or they receive guidance in terms of what are the challenges and why this development plan to address those challenges. You know, or you have a candidate-led pre-transition development. You know, they take accountability for the development because ultimately all change that the organization is planning, if the person doesn't take accountability, then no change is possible. And then senior faculty members and managers are involved to ensure that the development is realistic and supported. So simply sending somebody to some country and thinking that the culture of that country will rub off on him, maybe that's expecting too much. So so somebody needs to ensure they have touch points, connect with the individual, see if the program is going as per plan. So all those things are important, and then manage external entrant expectations. If people are coming from you know uh, outside, so what are the derailers that they may face. Now I don't know if I'd shared one example. Once I was doing some consulting work for Maruti Udyog, and uh, so Maruti Udyog was facing a big crisis. So they had decided that they will bring in some fresh blood in the company. And I don't know if you have interacted with Maruti Udyog. They're a wonderful company, and it's amazing work ethics. But most of the people are people who have grown in that company. They have started from scratch as management trainees, and they have grown to managers, senior managers, DGMs, and things like that.
Yeah, homegrown leader is the
Yeah, they
policy
are
of,
all
yes.
homegrown people. So
Correct.
their HR had in between decided that we need fresh talent. We need people from who come from outside and join us. Then we will be able to see things in a new way. So they got a few people, particularly, I don't know why it was so, but they got a lot of managers from banks. And those people who came in, and most of them left within 12 months. So they didn't know what happened, because we are a great company, and those fellows also came from good banks. So why did they leave us? And so then it was discovered that while they were brought in, but manufacturing companies have a different kind of a culture. Particularly Japanese companies have a different kind of a culture. You may have an assistant manager and a vice president sitting next to each other in an open floor, and that is something that many companies are not used to. And you don't know what to do, because let's say a GM comes in, and he's sitting right next to an assistant manager, and he feels, hey, what is this? And I'm sitting out in the open where everybody can see my laptop, everybody can see what I'm doing. I don't like this environment. So a lot of things, some companies have very strong cultures. Um, I was part of a very large company once, and we had recruited somebody from a traditional Indian company, a very very senior person. And this person joined the company I was in, which was a US MNC. and he came from a very reputed Indian company, and he joined us. Now, he within about a month he left and went back to his old company. So when he was leaving, I just bumped into him because I had been responsible for his induction, So I just asked him, sir, what happened? He said, "नहीं, ये ठीक जम नहीं रहा. I need to kind of go back." So one of the things he pointed out very oddly was that in my previous company, I had my cabin, and we had a separate toilet. Here, I go to the toilet with everyone. Oh my god. you know, so which was a total eye opener for me. Really, I mean, are you that exclusive in? I wasn't aware. While in MNCs it's quite democratic, everybody uses the same facilities. You don't have separate facilities for senior people. All kinds of things can happen. So therefore, when you are getting talent from outside, lateral talent, they need to be cultured in your organization. They need to be sensitized to um, what are the do's and don'ts in your culture, and there needs to be a smooth onboarding so that they understand, look, this is how it is, and there are goods and there are maybe things which you may not appreciate, but there's a logic behind why that happens, and gradually you will start get used to it. So uh, so that is important in terms of how you support them through the journey. So um, so these are some of the things that can be done to ensure a smooth succession planning. So it should be first of all owned by business leaders. Very often what happens is these HR initiatives, people see them as HR initiatives. People don't think that this is everybody's responsibility. HR is a catalyst. HR is an enabler. Ultimately, it is going to be benefiting the business, and the business needs to take responsibility for it. But
Sir,
yeah,
sir, yes, this is the reason actually. This is
Mhm.
what the culture is, right?
Yeah,
That people actually think this is the HR initiative. They have taken the initiative and it's not the part of the management. MOB, management by objective, that is actually missing.
yeah.
They don't
This
treat
is
it
a
as,
Yeah, this is a big
correct.
problem across organizations. People just if people don't take responsibility for these kind of initiatives, then initiatives don't succeed because HR alone cannot drive these things.
Correct.
Also,
Uh,
the managers of these individuals need to cooperate, because if they don't let go, then it becomes difficult actualizing these.
yes, absolutely. Because HR can give you the template. HR can take you through a focus group discussion, sensitize you, enable you to do this. But ultimately, it is the manager, it is the department which has to take responsibility. HR can push, HR can nudge, but HR cannot close the loop.
That's also true for training, in fact.
So
Until
therefore,
they transfer the learning on the job, it's
yeah,
the
yeah,
same thing there also.
exactly,
Correct.
exactly, exactly. Very often, it's very disheartening to see that I train people, then they go back, and when they try to implement something, their manager says, "हाँ हाँ ठीक है, बहुत training कर लिया, चलो now get back
Hmm.
to work." You know,
Right.
Correct.
So true. Huh?
so
Vivek
when
sir,
I
yeah, I'll share one
yeah,
example. I'm sorry, I'll take two, three
no, no, please,
minutes.
please, please,
You know
that's
what happened? Recently, it has happened with me. I mean, just 4 months back, I stopped taking the training assignments, especially for bank. I was so, one small incident happened with me. I lost my wallet. So, and there was some glitch into it. So, I have to walk into the branch, though generally I do everything online only. But there was some glitch. My debit card was not getting, the pin was not getting generated. So I walked into the branch and and this lady was sitting. She was very young, and I asked her that my there's some problem with my debit card, so new debit card has to be generated because of that. So she simply said you have to bring this, three documents before even hearing me. So I was trying to tell her something, but she said no, bring this. I said okay, kya kaun behes karega, done. So she said come at 4 o'clock because by the time the branch operations will be done. I said okay. So I sharp at 4 o'clock I walked into the branch, and then I completed that form. I gave the documents. At the time of submitting the document, I was about to do that. The manager, he walked in and said, "Ye training hai teri." He literally said like this, training. And this girl, she made such a odd face. She said, "Sir, अब here कोई मतलब ऐसे, sir अब ये कोई." So he said, "कुछ नहीं, earphone पे रखना, बीच बीच में दो बार yes yes कर देना." Can you imagine? And I was standing right across the counter, and I was actually training for this bank only
Okay.
at that point. I thought, my goodness, this, and I was actually training for that profile also. So I was taken aback. I thought, what is this happening? And then, okay, this was one incident. Then she spoke to me. I said, this is these are document. And she said, okay, go and take the card from there. I said, no, I don't want a ready-made card. I want a pre-embossed card. So she said, so then that will come in 6-7 days. I said, I know that. Then she said, why are you giving me the document? I said, I was not giving the document, you asked me. In fact, you did not heard me. It was only the form that I was supposed to submit. So clearly there was a training gap. She
Mhm.
was not aware, whereas she would have actually saved her time. Now what I was able to see, that yes, she was wasting her time, not only her time, the customer time also. And on top of that, the manager were also asking her कि ठीक है तो avoid कर दे training, where she can actually build upon her knowledge and can save a lot of time and can be more productive. So this is what is actually happening.
Yeah,
You
you're
know,
absolutely
because they think that this is the HR initiative, HR ले आया है training, करना है तो करे, नहीं करना नहीं करे. Managers, they have to take the responsibility and drive it, the department and everyone. And
yeah,
ultimately, all of them, they will be benefited.
right. And training will be kind of be able to deliver what it is supposed to if it falls in the right cultural environment.
Correct.
If the culture is different, then you don't know what to do. You know,
Hmm.
I had trained a government PSU once, and the PSU people, first of all, they said that ये सब हमारे ऊपर क्यों लागू है, हमारे मैनेजर को नहीं करना चाहिए, ये सबको उनको सीखना चाहिए, हमें क्यों सिखा रहे हो, हमें तो आता ही है सब. You know, the so
बिल्कुल ऐसे बोलते हैं.
then what happened was they were more interested because the management has said that you folks need to come and train these guys, but the management apparently after the pay commission, their dues had not been cleared, the employees dues had not been cleared, so employees were more interested in अरे ये ट्रेनिंग कंपनी कहाँ से उठा के ले आए, जब हमारे पूरे पैसे नहीं दिए इन्होंने अभी तक, ये ट्रेनिंग कंपनी को कैसे पैसे दे दिए इन्होंने. So entire training was falling on deaf ears because they were not, uh, really keen to learn that, because they were in a different mindset. They were more
Yeah.
like union people sitting over there. हमें नहीं सीखना, हमारे पैसे दो पहले. So it has to be the entire change that you're trying to bring in, the succession management that you're trying to bring in. It has to be upheld by the entire business and not just by HR. Then like we discussed last time, assess potential for future roles. So performance is very good, and people should look at performance, but also keep looking at potential as well. Very few organizations, unfortunately, look at potential very seriously, because it is subjective. Of course, it is subjective. It cannot be completely objective like performance can be objective. But because of the subjectivity, many people avoid it altogether. It should not be avoided. It should be, on your y-axis, and people should be evaluated on potential, and with the caveat that it cannot be an objective appraisal of potential. Managing succession data on individuals and talent pools, this is very important, whether you have the right data or not. Many organizations, they do not have, HR doesn't maintain proper data, and because they feel that this is something good to have, this is not critical. I have to have payroll data, I have to have their um, uh, uh, employee bio information in terms of date of joining, date of promotion, etc., etc. But succession planning data, maybe I will kind of get it done, but if there's no compulsion, if there is no focus, then generally it is kind of available in bits and pieces, not in a proper way where you can actually use it to strategize. Then balance talent development and acquisition in achieving future objectives. This is very important. You acquire talent. Talent, of course, can be acquired, but it's also very critical that you develop talent internally. When you develop talent internally, there are certain advantages which you may not get from talent which is laterally acquired. So therefore, it's multiple reasons. I think we have gone through some of the reasons before. So talent development is something which is really, it will save exponentially on costs in terms of talent acquisition, plus the depth of capability that is there in the organization if you develop people internally tends to be much better as compared to just acquiring talent from outside. uh, Developing the process, tools, organization capabilities necessary to effectively implement and sustain the system. This is, of course, goes without saying, should be done as a process and not just as a one-off. Integrate succession planning systems into other businesses and HR systems in the organization. So that is again very important. It should not be a HR email which results in succession planning getting prompted, but as and when, let's say I'm doing project planning, so I need X number of headcount, I need, let's say, 10 project managers. I should immediately look at the, let's say, the global career marketplace or systems like that, or the skill matrix, to tell me who are those 10 people. And I should just, when I'm doing project planning as part of operations, I should just source my talent from these tools and these systems. So it should become a part of the larger system and not just be restricted to the HR processes. So those are some things which will enable succession planning to succeed. So any questions? This brings us to the close of succession planning. If no questions,
Yeah, sir, no questions. Everything has been dealt very
Yeah,
clearly.
clear. Yeah.
great. So I will share a video with you. This is basically a video from LinkedIn. And this is something which they had put out in the beginning of 2020. So now, unfortunately, 2020 did not turn out the way people had anticipated, like a regular year. But these were some of the talent trends which LinkedIn had said will be taking shape in the global employee market. So let's look at what they mentioned. And of course, 2020 kind of just disappeared, but hopefully some of this will take shape in 2021.
Hi, I'm Brendan Brown. Welcome to Talent on Tap. I head up recruiting here at LinkedIn. Today we're talking about LinkedIn's 2020 Global Talent Trends. And there's 4 of them with one theme. Let's get into it. First trend we're going to tackle is employee experience. So what is employee experience? It's the idea of shifting both mindset and practices from a company where employees work for the company, and now shifting to really where the company really works for the employees. We know that talent largely is the #1 thing at any organization, and it's that talent that's going to help that company win. In order to do that, prioritizing what the experience is for employees day to day is something that can really make a difference in terms of retention, commitment, quality of work, quality of life, etc. Second trend is people analytics. Not necessarily a new topic, but I can tell you, having spoken to many of our customers at LinkedIn and my peers in the recruiting industry, the varied investment in people analytics is pretty significant. So one, you need to start building a team that has that capability, but really the goal is to start to evolve human resources from what has been a legacy risk management organization, policy-driven organization, and instead thinking about how can I advise the business? What are those trends that I'm starting to see, or insights that I'm starting to see in some of our data that the business really truly needs to understand? Things to think about in terms of what you could measure. You can actually measure employee experience. A lot of organizations will do surveys on a quarterly, annual, or biannual basis. Identifying skill gaps is something that a people analytics team can help out with almost instantaneously. And think about that as a recruiter. If you want to understand truly where the skill gaps are within your company, for example, maybe an engineering leader thinks that there's enough Python skills to deliver the roadmap, but you take a look at the skills within the company, you realize, it's not there. If you can bring that conversation with some data to that engineering leader, I can guarantee you that that conversation will be different than you had in the past. Other things like evaluating how effective your recruiting channels actually are. Competitive intelligence is something that's very analytically and data-driven. But all of these lead to you becoming much more of an influencer and your credibility going up significantly. So I believe that people analytics will be the backbone of HR as we move forward into the future. It's going to become a table stakes thing for any talent team. If it's something that you're not thinking about or not prioritizing, you can start small. And if you already have a team, there's nothing to do but go forward and continue to get more sophisticated in the work that you're doing. Next big trend is internal recruitment. Some people might call it internal mobility. Very, very, very important. My experience in talking to my peers recently has been that this is something that lots of folks are prioritizing. So internal recruitment is just that. It's moving people around the company. But what I would say needs to change is the fact that historically at many companies, people move around the organization in a way that may not be that intentional or that strategic. So we as talent professionals and recruitment professionals need to think about what role we can play in doing a few things. One, making sure that we're proposing strategies and processes to make sure we move talent around the company in a way that helps us achieve what the business needs to get done. But I can tell you from a retention point of view, if you have a strong commitment to internal recruitment, a good process to back it up, and good transparency and awareness of where all the opportunities are, retention will have a nice benefit because people stay longer. So there's a massive motivation to make sure that we're prioritizing our internal talent in a way that's going to give us the impact that we need for the business. The fourth trend is multi-generational workforce. So today we have Gen Z, Gen X, millennials, baby boomers often working together in organizations across the world. It's a really unique blend of experiences and demographics, and I think it's a massive opportunity. Oftentimes it is not really unleashed or maximized. First and foremost, it's good to understand what these generations are all about, and the fact that they may value different things, may behave differently, may find purpose in different ways. So a few companies I've talked to have done interesting things like reverse mentoring, having baby boomer workers have a mentor who is from Gen Z and formalize those conversations and create a dynamic in which people can learn from each other in a meaningful way. So understanding and hiring people to help build a product, sell a product, develop a service that will meet the needs of their peer out in the market is really, really important. If I'm 22 years old trying to build a product for people that are 60, chances are I won't be able to build a great product. But if I'm 22 and I can help recruit someone who's 60 to help me build that product so it really meets the needs of that generation, good things are going to happen. Am I leaping to conclusions about someone who's from a younger generation? Am I bringing bias about thinking about someone who's in a generation who's older than I am, and finding out if there are people that can help be a sounding board or even a mirror for me in terms of making sure that they check me if making assumptions or bringing bias to the table that I really need to drop and get over. So those are 4 trends that are in our report this year. And then there's also one theme, which is empathy. And I think this is absolutely critical in organizations today. Having empathy and really putting yourself in someone else's shoes, I think is monumental, because empathy, when it's a part of the fabric of an organization, I know that my fear would be reduced. I'm not going to be afraid to go into a meeting and to get a bunch of hardcore feedback from someone that then may crush my confidence. I might become less likely to speak up next time in a meeting. So empathy, I think, is sort of the currency that can sort of flow through an organization to make sure that people can actually do their best work. But it's something that needs to be active. So I believe it can be a differentiating factor from organizations that are good to organizations that are spectacular in terms of people feeling like they can be themselves, They can use their own voice in a way that means something, and they can have a set of relationships that are much deeper than a transactional office relationship that many of us have experienced in our careers to date. So there's our 4 trends, our 1 theme for 2020. Let us know if there are things on your mind that you want to be talking about. We will definitely be digging into these topics more as we roll through 2020, and looking forward to seeing you next time on Talent on Tap.
So we saw, unfortunately, all those things which were planned for 2020 never really happened. So, but any takeaways from the video?
No, but partially, yes, as people are doing work from home, we can see that yes, these things are trending, especially the empathy and things that he was talking about. People have started talking about that. Yes, people should have more human touch rather than, and the deeper relationship they should be, especially with the peers and the seniors, they should have those kind of relationship. Don't you think so? I mean,
Yeah, I agree with you. Only thing is, I think we got disrupted in a way which nobody had
uh,
anticipated.
uh-huh.
But yes, a lot of it happened. Yeah, particularly empathy. I think people understood how critical it is for us to be interdependent and
Correct.
support each other in this crisis. So yes, you're right.
And in
But
fact, the baby boomers, they have this generation, they have also started, understanding the millennials in a much better way because, and they have actually dropped down their expectations also and trying to come to their standards so that they can bridge that gap and get the performance done from these people. Though in the organization setup, they were actually not willing to do that. But during the work from home, they have actually, become more softer and politer for getting the work done.
great,
I mean,
great.
maybe I have seen this happening
Okay.
when I was talking to people.
Okay, that's good to know that these some of these trends have kind of are being realized. So I feel that empathy is very critical for an organization to succeed. Like he said, that you may go to a meeting and you may get a dressing down or something like that, but that should not destroy your confidence. It could be a functional feedback which is coming to you, but the sentiment should be that I'm here to support and understand your challenges. So, so great. That brings us to the close of talent management. So, any questions that you have?
No, sir, not really.
I, I think when we start revising the whole thing,
Yeah.
later we may actually come up with uh,
Right.
because
So,
exams are now in Jan end, so
okay,
it will be like from start. Right now we are working on our assignments, which needs to close, and then the
okay,
entire course needs to be revised.
okay.
But
So,
it's very systematic. This topic, one is linked to another, and
yeah,
it's a
very true.
bridge. Yeah. Mhm.
So, I will just quickly go through some important questions which get asked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please, sir.
And the one question is, what is talent management, and describe in detail what's its purpose and how it benefits an organization. So I will be forwarding, the slides which we have discussed. But if you would remember, in the first discussion that we discussed definition of talent management, and then we talked about through graphs, we talked about some of the things which are expected of an organization in terms of planning their talent. So, if you, I don't know if I have it handy, but talent management, we had
Yeah, we
described.
spoke about the recruitment, the role of talent management in recruitment as well as
Yes,
onboarding and everything. Yeah, and how the
right.
branding of the organization.
And the models which are there.
Yeah. Then question on what are the various steps involved in formulating a talent management strategy in an organization. So this is something we had discussed in mm, one of the sessions, which was just trying to get some of these slides. Yeah, so we had talked about a talent strategy framework where you talk of the vision of the organization, the business outcomes that you are trying to get to, then how the talent outcomes will support those business outcomes. Then what should be the metrics which will tell you whether you are on the right lines or not? What are the key behaviors that you would expect? And what are the programs and tools? For example, a succession planning program, the tool would be maybe a skill matrix tool. So there would be programs and tools that you need to be talking about. So that's where your talent management strategy comes in. Then describe in detail the talent acquisition workflow in an organization. And similarly, we had spoken about the workflow, which is identifying strategic intent, identifying key people capabilities, identifying talent pools, then developing or deploying the existing talent, motivating and retaining talent, so and so forth. So then another question which comes is a successful employee engagement strategy. So if you remember, we had a very detailed session on employee engagement, and we had spoken on uh, the individual aspects of employee engagement, the organizational aspects of employee engagement, and what are the best practices. For example, you have deferred income plans, you have reward and recognition programs, you have what kind of benefits are you offering, what kind of assignments, uh, on the job assignments, maybe people getting an opportunity to work in different departments, etc. So we had, I hope some of it is ringing a bell. Yes, no?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Huh.
Right, sir.
So then employee retention, talent acquisition and talent retention. These are two very common questions which come across. Also, you get true and false. Those are not, they don't carry too many marks, but you still get true and false. But the good thing is the true and false are fairly straightforward. Like, for example, the allocation of financial capital is recognized as the most critical driver of an organization's performance. Human capital is of lesser importance. So, do you think that's true or false?
False.
False.
Absolutely. So it's fairly clear because in a session on talent management, we cannot be talking about financial capital.
Financial things. Yeah.
So maybe in a session on financial capital, we can be talking about this would be true, but here it is not true. So so you have, let's say another sentence is the success or failure of an organization is increasingly determined by its ability to keep its best people. True or false?
True.
True.
True, yeah.
Uh, so these are not the very close ones. Sometimes you get in true and false very close options, which make it a bit difficult. But most of them are fairly simple. Then you may get. Uh, I hope you have some question papers from last year or previous years.
No, sir. We
I
don't.
just
I
have
don't
this
have.
one. Yeah, this is the 19 one. The last sem we had online. So it
Okay.
was like a proctored thing. So that I don't have.
Okay.
This
So
was before that. The one.
Arpita, please share this one at
Yeah,
least
I'll
with
do
me.
that.
yeah.
I'll do that on WhatsApp. I'll
Thank
share
you.
it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I also got it from Mumbai chapter.
Great. So we are connected to all the chapters now. That is the
Yeah,
benefit
yeah.
we are
That's a good
driving.
part. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, very good plan. Kolkata even.
Mhm. I'm
Thanks
connected
to
with
COVID,
Bangalore.
actually.
Yeah. So that's a
Thanks
good
to
part.
COVID.
Yeah, thanks to something good has come out that.
Yeah.
Then you may be given some case study like detailed question which may carry a lot of marks. Like for example, this question: you are the head of HRD of a large organization. To sustain the growth of your organization, there is need for managing the talent pool of your company. Prepare a report elaborating the purpose of introducing talent management and the suggested process for talent management you propose to initiate in your organization. So basically, this practically covers a lot of what we have done. So how would you like to introduce talent management uh, in your company? So starting with visioning exercise, business objectives, then your talent objectives, which we just spoke about. And also, if you remember, we had done the competency framework. It's important that if you have such a framework in the organization, then everything becomes easier and everything gets aligned, because that is like the fundamental basis on which you create a lot of the tools and the systems and the processes. Uh, Similarly, let's say you are the head of training of a large company, and
Can you repeat once, Dipankar? Talent, the succession and nine box. After that, the last
com-
part. Then
the
Competency
competency
framework.
framework.
okay.
To have the
And
competency framework for all the
But it will
levels,
be
and
very
then we can.
long. I mean, I think it's a
yeah, it
16
is.
marks thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So similarly, you are the head of training of a large manufacturing company, and you are advised to prepare a talent management strategy for your organization. So accordingly, prepare a detailed report on talent management strategy for submission to your top management, which should be compatible with organization strategy. So they here you can create a training plan. Um, Also, training, when it says compatible with organizational strategy, so how much of the talent is to be acquired from outside, how much of it is to be developed internally. Your training plan will support what is to be developed internally. And it's a manufacturing company, so you would need to have functional training, you would need to have um, behavioral training, all of that put together. So these are the
Okay.
kind of the bigger questions, more essay sort of questions. Then you have true and false, multi choice, and then you also have some questions which are like carry about 5 marks each, short answers. So these
This
are some
this
of the
time,
things.
I guess it will be at least something can be expected on the current situation, e-learning, and
Yeah,
how to
right, right.
manage in work from home situation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that's how it goes. I'm not sure, we will be interacting after this, but in case I can be of any help, in case there is any doubt, please feel free to reach out to me, and I should be able to help.
Yes, yes,
Yes, definitely, sir.
definitely, and we must catch up when things open up.
Yeah, definitely.
Students have been dying to meet each other. It's been so long.
Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, nowadays you have WhatsApp groups. When I had done a PGC HRM from XLRI, we did not have WhatsApp, but we have been in touch, and now I think all of us are on WhatsApp. So I think it's people just stay in touch,
Yeah.
and it's good to have a good peer group, good set of friends, and it's always good to be knowing people in your industry.
Yes.
Okay, any questions, any observations, anything else?
Vivek has been very silent. So.
Yeah.
Actually, today my wife underwent a surgery for
Oops.
gallbladder removal and
Oh,
hernia repair. So I'm
Oh,
in the nursing home only.
Oh, okay.
my
oh
God.
gosh.
So all things are well. so in
Hope she
control.
gets well soon. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks. So I have a request that can I have your mobile number so that I can connect, because I am from a different part of the country, so I am not in any WhatsApp group or all.
Okay.
So
Sure. My mobile number is 98
98
115
115
00
00
184.
184. And Arpita and Pallavi, if you can share.
I'll put it
Yep.
on chat. Yeah.
Yeah, I was also
Right,
doing the
it's,
same thing.
Okay, sorry, one letter got missed.
Yeah. Otherwise, your number will be mistaken for the Indian cricket team sports.
Yeah, yeah. It was horrible.
So what to take, just a minute. 26.
Arun, you gave Ted Das's Google thing.
Right, ma'am.
Like,
Yeah.
Arpita, which
Okay.
one is your number?
second one, 7322. That one.
Okay, 9899 732247. Let me share mine.
Dear sir, madam, please share the feedback for the Dipanka sir over there. Right.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. It's been absolutely
Thank you.
wonderful.
Yes,
Thank you
sir.
so
Sir,
much.
thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much, sir. Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
sure, Vivek, I hope your wife gets well soon. And
Yes, sir. Thanks, sir, for the wishes.
all be in touch.
What commitment, I must say, from you.
Seriously,
Really
standing at the
impressive.
nursing home and then attending the session also, and then
It
Really
was the
amazing.
last class too. Will be missing the class means again there's a problem. Examinations on my head. And these last two papers are slightly different from the other papers.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dipankar. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank
Have
you.
a great evening ahead.
You too.
Thanks.
Thanks, Arun.
Okay, ma'am. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Arun. Thanks for your
Yes,
support.
sir. I am the only person for the enroll for the line in the content classes over there for the all the chapters over there, right?
We are still awaiting our results, Arun. Please declare.
Ma'am, just please contact Mr. Raghunaman. Actually, that department is not in my handle over there, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thanks.
Right.
Bye.
thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.